Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Reporting. Coming up on today's show, I got an updated top 10 Raiders free agent targets. Antonio Pierce, Tom Telesco, full closure. I think they've actually done a pretty solid job with the silver and black. I know some people still want them to go out and make some other moves, but if you consider the fact that if Adam Butler, John Jenkins, and Adoree James didn't play with the Raiders and they weren't considered re-signings, I think people would be a lot more excited about a lot of the moves that the Las Vegas Raiders have made. As it stands right now, the Raiders are 8th in salary cap space. So I took numbers from Over the Cap and I took numbers from Spotrac. Both were very similar in where they had the Raiders at. The more important number to me, though, is 8th most still in salary cap space. 8 picks in total for the NFL draft, 1 through 7, and then they have 2 picks in round 7. If you find yourself looking for free agency videos around the Raiders, I promise you, we got you covered here. If they sign somebody like a Tre White and Xavien Howard and Adoree Jackson, I'm going to be going live here on this channel. We're going to celebrate the move. We'll also break it down, give you the full analysis. And at the end of the day, I like to make content. And if you're a Raider fan, you bleed silver and black, I like to believe that we are the channel for you. So coming up here, the way that I have these players ranked is I have ranked them from 10 down to 1, and I based it on how much of a team need that I think it is, how much I think it would cost the Raiders to go out and sign those players, and then just the overall fit on the offense or on the defensive side of the football. You're going to see that there are certain positions that I am going to value more than others, and realistically, there's just certain positions that I'm targeting here in NFL free agency. Let's go to number 10 on the list, and it is Patrick Peterson. And I know that I have him listed here as a cornerback. However, I would say that you could almost put hybrid / safety next to Peterson's name based on what he was able to do last season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I thought that he played pretty well last year at the safety spot. And the reason why that he had to play safety is when Pittsburgh lost Minkah Fitzpatrick, Peterson was like, all right, man, I'll step up. I got the job. And the way that I would look at the role that Peterson would play is, I'm not saying Patrick Peterson's Charles Woodson, but Peterson at one point was one of the best corners in the NFL. When you're a really smart player, you figure out ways how to stay in the league longer. And that's what I think Peterson was able to do at safety, where he's like, you know what? I'm not as athletic as what I used to be, and I can't play corner, but I still got this up here. And that's what he's going to be able to bring to the table. A player coach on the field, which is very important. Also, last season, he was with Gerald Alexander, who's the Raiders safety coach now. And if you could put him in that hybrid type of role, corner safety, add a little bit of a mix in there, which if you do this, that helps you out for behind Merrick, behind Epps. I think it also leaves the door open for the Raiders to say, you know what? We still need that legit cornerback one. This could be your Amik Robertson replacement, and then still go out and try to potentially get a guy like a Terrion Arnold, a Quinion Mitchell, a Nate Wiggins in the first round of the NFL draft. So when you think about all those moves from top to bottom, here's the safety room. And I would have a lot more faith in Patrick Peterson over Chris Smith, over Jones, over Grant. I still would have Epps and Merrick starting, but from cornerback to safety, I think this would be a good fit here for the silver and black. Let's go to number 9 here on my rankings. It is Laken Tomlinson. The way that I consider Peterson is the exact same way I consider Tomlinson. They are not what they used to be. And the reason why I have this position ranked higher than Peterson is because I personally view guard as a bigger need than cornerback as it stands right now. Now, if you're going to go out and you were to get Tomlinson, who 7 sacks allowed last season, wasn't great for the New York Jets previously, played for the San Francisco 49ers, but he has started every game for the past 6 seasons at left guard. If you sign Tomlinson here, you kick him at left guard, then you put over Dylan Parham over to right guard, which there's at times that I think that might be his better position. You put Parham at right guard, that helps out Thayer Munford, and he is a better pass blocker than a run blocker, and that's been kind of what he's been his entire career, which is kind of why I would like to put him on the left side then a little bit more. It's going to depend who your quarterback is. If it's Penix, I don't think it really changes the idea. If it's, Aiden, if it's Gardner Minshew, don't know if it changes all that much. But you go out, you sign Laken Tomlinson, you put him at left guard, then you have Adoree James, Dylan Parham, Thayer Munford. That would be your Raiders starting offensive line. Here's my question. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show, which means you're about to get hit with the YouTube ad break. Scroll on down. Let the ad play. When you let the ad play, hey, helps out Jeremy Chuggs and I. I can promise you that. So if you want to help us out, please let the ad play. If the Raiders could sign one free agent, let's say Telesco, Pierce, they say, you guys get only one more. Only one more. Who are you going with? Let me know down below. My answer is going to be ranked number 1 on this video. Let's go to number 8 here, Isaiah Simmons at the linebacker position. I am telling you right now, the only linebacker that if I'm the Raiders that I would legitimately consider to sign in free agency is Isaiah Simmons. 6'4", 240-pound linebacker. He is an athletic freak out of Clemson, and realistically, probably coming off the best year that he's ever had as a pro. 50 tackles, 1 interception, 3 PBUs, and this was a player that I had just such sky-high aspirations for, and I was pounding on the table for the Raiders to get him just a few years ago when he was coming out. And the Arizona Cardinals did not use him correctly. The Giants used him a little bit better last season, but he's got 41 career starts in 4 seasons. And when you look at his PFF grade, an 82.7 coverage grade, like, I want a linebacker that can cover a little bit better. And I know that Simmons has been, many people would consider him a bust so far. But the reason why that I would do this move here if I'm Las Vegas is because, does anybody out there believe in Antonio Pierce? Does anybody out there believe in Patrick Graham? Does anybody out there believe in Rob Leonard? Rob Leonard coached the linebackers at the Senior Bowl. I believe Antonio Pierce has that mentality, and he really helped the Raiders turn into one of the best defenses in the NFL. And then Patrick Graham. Like, there's so many good teachers, and I'm not just really betting on Isaiah Simmons. If anything, I'm betting on the Raiders coaching staff to get the most out of this guy. And if you do end up getting the most out of him, look out, because this is another move that could really transition this Raiders defense from being one of the best to the best defense in the league. Like, Robert Spillane, I'm excited to see what he does this year. Divine Diablo, I've been waiting on it. Luke Masterson is an underappreciated player. But if you were to add Isaiah into this mix, it does. It makes your linebacker room, makes your entire defense a lot more agile and a lot more versatile. Let's go to number 7 on the list here. It's going to be Tre'davious White, cornerback, previously with the Buffalo Bills. He was cut earlier this season. The Raiders met with him on Monday, which is March 18th, I want to say is the date. And White has dealt with several, and I mean several injuries over the past few seasons. And there's multiple teams that have been interested in White. And I'm hoping, I'm making this video here on Thursday. I'm hoping that he doesn't sign in between when I put this video out because, like, he's visiting the Rams. I think he's visiting the Titans. I think the Giants have a little bit of interest on him on top of that. But you're also talking about a dude that's had multiple injuries, also tore his Achilles on October 1st, 2023, so just a few months. And there's some hesitation because I don't want to go out and get a corner that's not able to stay healthy. And yeah, the upside's there. Absolutely, it's there. I'm not going to pay him a lot of money. If I'm going to give him a deal, I'm going to say, all right, here's $4 million. I'll give you $4 million extra if you're able to play some games and stay healthy, because only 10 games played in the last 2 seasons, only 21 games played in the last 3 seasons, but when he has been on the field, he is a legit corner. And overall, like, would I have more confidence in Tre'davious White or Brandon Facyson? I'm having a lot more confidence in White. Facyson, I also don't know how healthy he's going to be. What is he going to look like after not playing basically the entire season? And just because you go out and sign Tre White does not mean that you should not go out and try to target a corner in the NFL draft high up. Let's go to number 6 on my list here. It's Greg Van Roten. And yes, I'm serious. I value Greg Van Roten more than all these other players. Why? Price. Based on, I know that he can already play in this system. Based on, it's a 6th man type of approach. And that's like the really, really key term that I want you guys to think of. Like, think about the great NBA teams, right? You need to have that solid 6th man. That's what I want Greg Van Roten to be. That solid 6th man that can be a backup left guard, that can be a backup right guard. And last season, did a pretty good job for the Silver and Black. 1,025 snaps played. Does not get the credit that he deserves. The 75.3 PFF grade. That was the 7th best out of 79 guards last season. And would like him to be that 6th man. I see some of y'all are saying, is it the same system? It's not exactly the same system, obviously, because you have a different offensive line coach with James Craig. Carmen Basillo, he ends up moving on. But to me, it's the same mentality with Antonio Pierce. And that's kind of the mentality that I'm going forward here when I talk about Greg Van Roten. On top of that, it's a big-time upgrade over DJ Fluker. And if you're able to put Van in this situation, you still have the opportunity to go out and draft a guard. And I think he'd be a good coach's player. I think he'd also be a good teammate. And I know for a fact that the Raiders locker room absolutely loved Greg Van Roten. Coming up here, the top 5 free agents that the Raiders should go out and target. I know that the NFL draft is kind of the concentration for some people right now. That's still like 5 weeks away, y'all. the Raiders can still make some moves, and they're going to be making some moves. I can promise you that. I can also promise you this. We only have a few of these bad boys left in stock. They've been flying off the shelves like crazy. And if you want to get your hands on a Christian Wilkins t-shirt, then all I need you to do, you can see the link down there in the comments. It is chatsports.com/Wilkins. I know it says 00. It's just the graphic. It's just what was made at the time. What do you say? Placeholder. That's the right word. It's going to be number 94. That's the number that Wilkins picked. And I'm telling you right now, if you're like, I've been wanting to get this, I've showed it a few times, this may be your last opportunity, because what we were told is they don't have many left. So think about this as you're looking for a flight. There's 2 seats left. I don't want you to miss the flight. So get this, chatsports.com/Wilkins. Link is available to y'all down in the comments and in the description of today's show. Let's go to number 5 here on my list. It's Dalton Risner at offensive guard. If the Raiders were to sign anybody on the interior offensive line, the name that I would throw out there is Risner. To me, he's the best option from top to bottom, 6'5", 310 pounds. Last season and 745 snaps, solid pass blocker. Run blocking could be a little bit better, though the Minnesota Vikings in general had a pretty weak offensive line. The Raiders would be a better one. 4,518 snaps at left guard in his 5-year career, which I do think is an important metric. And if you go out and add Risner, you're probably going to keep him at left guard. Then you're probably going to kick Dylan Parham over to right guard. He's also has some AFC West experience from his time with the Broncos from 2019 to 2022, which the reason why that I note that is because that does mean some value to Tom Telesco. It's not a difference maker, but realistically, if it came down to Risner and Greg Van Roten and them wanting a similar type of deal, I do think that the Raiders would go with Risner. And even if it was just a little bit more for Risner, I think they would end up going with him just because he is the better player. He's the more reliable player, and building your trenches is extremely important, especially because you don't know who's going to play quarterback yet. So I discussed 3 offensive linemen, and spoiler alert, these are the only guards that are going to be on today's show. So let's just say this. Let's play a game. Let's say Laken Tomlinson, Greg Van Roten, Dalton Risner. Let's say Laken Tomlinson's the cheapest. Greg Van Roten is the second cheapest. Most expensive is Dalton Risner. You can pick only one to sign. Who are you rolling with? Are you going to go with Tomlinson, type LT? If you're going to go with Van Roten, give me a GVR, or if you're going to roll with Dalton Risner, that's where I'm going. I'm typing my DRs down below. Let's go here to number 4 on the list of our Raiders free agent targets. I'm going to roll with Steven Nelson at the cornerback spot. Now, Nelson is not what I would consider a cornerback one, and some of the names that you're going to see coming up here aren't cornerback ones, but he's a reliable player, and he's a damn good football player. 63 tackles last season for the Texans, 4 interceptions, 12 pass breakups. I've talked to Chugs numerous times about Nelson, and it's one of those dudes that you just really don't want to let go. He's a solid football player. I'm not going to overpay him. He's not that type of guy, but he's a guy that if you add him, he's going to be a reliable corner on your backfield. So Nelson, coming off back-to-back strong seasons with the Texans, has started at least 15 games in every season since 2018. And the fact that he's played in multiple schemes gives me confidence. And sometimes people get a little bit worried when you get an older player in their 30s, how are they going to adjust to a new defense? He's played in so many different systems and has played in those systems at a good, solid, high level that I'm not worried about how is he going to fit with Patrick Graham. I'm not worried about how the fit's going to be. And if you were able to add Nelson, I don't know then if the need is as much to draft a corner in round 1, which maybe, you shift your attention to another position per se. But if you are really eyeing a corner in the 2nd, 3rd round, or maybe you don't want to draft a corner and you're looking at Ja'Cory and Bennett, how can we give him a little bit more time? Going out and adding a veteran like Nelson is a solid move. Let's go to number 3 here on my list, who realistically is probably the best guy on this entire list. It's Stephon Gilmore. And if you're looking for a legit cornerback one, Gilmore might be the guy that you should pick up the phone and give a call to if you're considering free agency. I'll also say he's going to be the most expensive on this entire list. Gilmore to me is going to be getting somewhere around $10 million per year. And the fact that he does still thrive in single coverage and is arguably the best cornerback on the market, he knows that, his team knows that, and sure, he's 33 and a half years old, but he can still play at a high level. He's played over 1,000 snaps in back-to-back seasons. And when you consider what the market is, I'm telling you right now, the name that you're about to see on this show is not better than Gilmore. I do think that there's upside in the next player that you're going to see, but the reason why Gilmore's number 3 on my list is solid player, can be a cornerback 1 still in this league, and when you look at these numbers here, I mean, it absolutely backs that up. Like, he's not the defensive player of the year that he once was. And I know some of you are like, well, he's going to have a downfall sooner rather than later. And he might sooner rather than later. Father Time is undefeated. But from what I saw last season and what I've seen from him, if he's motivated and he's healthy, he could still be a very, very good corner. Let's go to number 2 here on my list, and it is Adoree Jackson. The reason why Jackson gets the nod over Gilmore is price tag. I think Jackson's half the price of what Stephon Gilmore is. And on top of that, there's a lot of upside here with Jackson. He's got versatility. 63 tackles, 8 PBUs, 1 interception last season for the New York Giants. But when you look at the tape, he was injured the first half of the season. The back half of the year, he played at a much higher level, and once you know it, he was healthy. He had a career year with Patrick Graham back in 2021, so he does already have some of those connections there. And I believe that he would take a cheap 1-year prove-it deal, which is something that I would look for in Jackson. And Gilmore might take a 1-year deal as well. I just don't think it would be nearly as cheap. And because of that ability to play in the slot, because of that ability to play on the outside, it does give you a lot of versatility. And if they wanted to move Nate Hobbs around, you could do it. I'll also say this, just because you go out and you sign Adoree Jackson does not mean that taking Terrion Arnold at number 13 is out of question. Like, that would still be a possibility to me. When you look at his PFF grades and stats from last season, he had an overall grade of 40.5 is what that says, which is kind of crazy to me. A coverage grade, which not great either. Passer rating of 119.9, and then INTs, as you can see, 0. On top of that, the PBUs. But Adoree, I know some people are going to look at some of these numbers here, and they might be, thrown off a little bit, but his PFF grade was a 48.6. His coverage grade was a 45.9, so yeah, I don't know where you got those from. I was like, those aren't right. Now, still, though, like, the PFF numbers are not spectacular. But I don't want you to just look at the PFF numbers because they are kind of skewed, and I wish PFF would, like, divide it at times with, like, beginning of the year and the back end of the year. He was much, much better at the back half of last season, and that's why he's on this list. Cheap also knows Patrick Graham, which means rolling in here at number 1. I asked you guys earlier, who is the number 1 free agent that you would want the Raiders to sign? My name, it's Xavien Howard. And I will say, if you go out and you sign X, I don't know what that means for taking a corner at pick number 13, but like based on fit, based on upside, based on price tag, I think Howard could be a home run hit. And if you're able to add Howard to your defense, somebody who does have a lot of swagger, on top of that, this guy makes plays on the ball. He creates turnovers. And I anticipate this Raiders defense with their front 4, they're going to get pressure. Howard's going to take advantage of those opportunities. He's worked with Patrick Graham, Rob Leonard, and Gerald Alexander. He had 15 interceptions in the 2 years when Gerald Alexander was the DB coach down in Miami, and he started at least 13 games the last 4 seasons. Howard has this, like, people think he gets injured a lot more. He does play through injuries. I would say it kind of reminds me of, like, a Julio Jones, and I don't know if that reference makes sense to y'all, but where it was always, man, it feels like he's injured a lot more. He goes out there and he plays. He might not finish the game. But Howard, to me, if he's 100% healthy and he's motivated, I mean, wouldn't you want to go play with some of your old buddies in a Christian Wilkins and Adam Butler, a John Jenkins? You can be the standout cornerback 1 for the Las Vegas Raiders. Could be a good opportunity to get yourself a hefty payday on top of that. I do think he'd be cheaper than Gilmore, though it wouldn't surprise me if Howard and his team did try to get him a contract similar to something that maybe a player like Stephon Gilmore could potentially get. All right, y'all, those are my top 10 free agent targets for the Las Vegas Raiders based on needs, based on price tag, based on everything going on right now for the Silver and Black. If you guys could, don't be afraid, take a screenshot here, post it on Twitter, post it on Instagram. Just make sure that you tag me and Jeremy Chuggs at Mitchell Renz 365, at Jeremy Chuggs. If you're on IG, it's at Jeremy_Chuggs. So please keep that in mind. If you enjoyed today's show, we're going to be pumping out a lot, and I mean a lot of content very similar to this. I'll make you guys a promise. If the Raiders sign any of the 10 players that you see on screen right now, I will go live, and we will break it all down. Sound good? So don't miss the show. We're going to be partying. We're going to be rallying here on the Raiders Report. Hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, and if you're watching this live, more duck races coming up.